So you're someone who's, I mean, Training Peaks and I guess how it's formatted is very much, you're the co-founder. You know, it comes out of where you took the sport and coaching. How would you define the art of coaching if you would look at the numbers as the science and that aspect of it? How would you define the art of coaching?
Yeah, you're right that the science of coaching basically is numbers. If you pick up a research study, I've never seen a research study in sport or physiology that didn't talk about numbers yet. I've never seen that, because that's what science is numbers. You're always looking at data, and data is one form of data is numbers, and that's just part of the sport. So that's critical. But the other side of this, which is just as critical, that sometimes some people lose track of, or other people actually overemphasize, is the art of training, the art of racing, which is also important, but it's not numbers, it's feelings. It's what's going on inside your body, and not only physically, but also mentally. All of this is being analyzed by your body in a unique way in terms of how do I feel right now? So, you know, somehow you've got to become very good at doing both of those things. I always told the athletes when I was coaching them that, what would you do if your power meter died during a race? You know, what if the battery went dead on your heart rate monitor? You know, what if these things happen? Because they happen to people. What do you do then? So we prepared for some of this by simply putting a piece of tape over their handlebar device or their heart rate monitor on their wrist or wherever their device was, so they couldn't see it. And then they go out and do the workout, maybe an interval workout. How well can they do the intervals that were prescribed without even being able to see any data at all? Just going on feeling. What does it feel like to you? But that's what we all used to do. When I started into sport a long time ago, that's all we had. We didn't have stopwatches. I ran track and field in college, and we didn't have stopwatches. The coach had the only stopwatch in the entire campus. And he was reluctant to give us information. It was like his secret data that he wanted to withhold until it was time to tell us, you know, whatever that meant. It was a strange time. We didn't have any data at all, so we all just went on how we feel. And so we got pretty good at that. We never quite honestly used numbers about it. I never talked about a 0 to 10 scale when I was running in college. We just talked about it feels really hard, or it feels hard, or it feels, you know, kind of easy or really easy, or it was always words. And we kind of got a sense of what that meant to each other, because once you get to know your training partners, you know, when they say it feels hard, what that means to them, how it impacts you, because you know what your relationship is to that person physically and mentally. So those things are both important. You can't have one without the other. The trend right now, you can't have good performance without one without the other. You have to have both of those. But where we're heading right now, what the trend is toward more data, more science. That is definitely a trend. There's no question about that. You have to go back before the 1990s to see a time when art was played a bigger role in performance than science. And it just continues to go that same direction. We're continuing to become more data driven. That has good things about it, and it also has bad things about it. I like the idea of being able to make decisions based on real data rather than simply on weak considerations of what's going on with my fitness, which may not be based on reality at all. It may be just pie in the sky sort of a dream, or just the opposite, some way of really kind of putting yourself down and mentally not being able to keep up with your activity. So we've got to have both of those things. But I think it's very important that an athlete, I've seen lots of athletes who say they hate data. And those athletes are mostly pro athletes, I found. They're very good at their sport, and they got that way by being very aware of how they felt. That's how they got very good. And so a lot of them don't want any numbers. They don't want power meters. They don't want heart rate monitors. They don't want anything like that. They just want to go out there and race. I call them artist athletes. You know, you wouldn't ask Michelangelo, why did you put that little dash of brown paint up there in the upper right-hand corner? He doesn't have a number or explanation for that. It's just how he felt. And that's exactly the way athletes are. Why did you pick up the pace there? In the second and third miles of that marathon race, why'd you do that? Well, I just felt like doing it. It just seemed like the right time. There's no data. Well, my heart rate said this, and my pace said this, and that's not the way they do it. The artist athlete says, well, that's because it felt right. Then there are accountant athletes. Accountant athletes just like numbers. So you can give an accountant athlete, a workout, and he will simply do it based on numbers. He'll watch all the numbers all the time. And there's all kinds. I've got this kind of hierarchy of types of athletes based on data versus feelings, and both are good. Both have a role for every athlete, but you can't have one without the other. You've got to be able to know what's going on in both ways. So trying to say it's one or the other is really not a good idea.
I think that's right. And I think there's a continuum as well. As people get into the sport, they start off not really having a clue what an FTP is, but then they get quite engrossed by it. They go through the data and almost they come out the other side and they're aware of it, but they can use their feelings, so they're aware of what their feelings means with numbers that can help sort of adjust where easy is and sort of say, well, do you not realize you were going too hard? No, I had no idea. Oh, now I can understand myself, my feelings a bit more for those athletes who aren't maybe as in tune with their body as they would have liked, or we would like, I suppose, as coaches.